Hello and welcome to the first video in a series of Minecraft 1.15.2 basic modding tutorials. The intention of this video series is to teach you the basics of Minecraft modding. These videos will assume that you have a knowledge of Java coding, at least a beginner level. If you do not, I highly recommend that you go off and spend some time learning the basics of Java first, as I will not be covering that in these videos. I will post some links in the description below for learning Java, but there are tons more resources out there for you to gain the knowledge that you will need. To give you a rough idea of where this is going, we will be starting off with setting up your workspace in today's video, and over the course of the next videos, you will learn to create custom items, blocks, armor, recipes, tools, foods with effects, and ore generation. There may also be additional videos thrown in to cover other things too, and at times we may need to split some of the other videos into multiple videos if they get too long. But I will be ensuring that any topics that I cover in this video series will be what I deem basic. I will be covering more advanced topics and mod integrations in future tutorial series. To get started, there are a few things you need to download and install first before we can set up the mod workspace. The first thing you're going to need to download and install is the Java 8 JDK, which stands for the Java Development Kit. It is imperative, however, that you download version 8. If you use a later version, you will not be able to follow this tutorial series as Minecraft Forge does not support a later version than 8. I am using the JDK from the Adopt OpenJDK website. I will post a link to this. As you can see, choose the version OpenJDK 8, long-term support. Make sure you choose the one for your platform. For me, it was obviously Windows. I've already got this installed on my machine, so I will not be doing it again, but I will walk you through the next step. Once you have downloaded and installed the Java JDK, you will need to check that the system environment variables path variable contains a location to the JDK bin folder. To do this, search on your machine env. It should come up with Edit System Environment Variables. Open that up. Click Environment Variables at the bottom. Locate the path variable under System Variables. Here it is. Double click it. Now, as you will see, I have got the Java JDK 8.0 bin folder here. If you do not, click New, Browse, and locate to this folder. It may be installed in a different location on your machine. Then click OK, OK, and OK again. And that's it for the JDK. The next thing you're going to want to do is download the 1.15.2 Minecraft Forge Mod Development Kit. I'll post a link to this website. Just make sure you go to 1.15.2, and I recommend that you download the recommended version. Just click the MDK link here. You'll most likely have an ad focus website. I have ad blocker, so it's blocking the bottom. But if you do see any ads at the bottom, try to resist clicking them, as it's probably not what you want. Once this skip button comes up, click it, download the file. As you can see, I've already downloaded it to speed up this tutorial. Once you've downloaded that, leave it where it is. We will be using that later. The last thing you're going to want to download is an IDE. That stands for Integrated Development Environment. You can use whatever one you want, really. Some people will use Eclipse, others will use IntelliJ. This is IntelliJ but JetBrains. I highly recommend it, and is what I will be using in the tutorial series that you will be following along. The community edition is free, and what it provides is perfectly adequate for what we're doing. Download and install this. I won't be doing it myself, as I've already done it. Finally, we can start to create our Minecraft mod. To do this, create a folder somewhere on your machine. I've created mine at this location. This will contain your mod. Now, mine currently has a .git folder and a license file. This is because I'm going to be publishing my code to GitHub. You can ignore that. I will be uploading my code in branches to GitHub along the course of this video tutorial series so that you can have a look at examples of before and after each of the videos to see what was actually done and as a history of what we've done. Locate the Forge MDK that you downloaded earlier, open it up, and extract all of the files into that new mod folder. Now this is optional, but I'd like to clean this folder up and delete some of the files that are just not needed. They don't affect anything and are not needed for your mod to work. The readme.txt, the license.txt, credits, and changelog. These can all be deleted, however I'd recommend probably having a scan over the files to see what the contents are. So one of the first things I like to do is add some custom variables to the Gradle.properties file to be used later on in the build.gradle file. So open up the Gradle.properties file. Leave what's currently there at the top and add the following to the bottom. I'll explain what this is, and you can tweak yours to match what you want. So the mod version is the version of your mod. Now because it hasn't been released to the public yet and is in development/alpha, it should be version 0.1.0. When it has been released to the public for the first time, it will be 1.0.0. This follows Semver. I will provide a link in the description to the Semver information that will explain when to increase the major, the minor, and the patch. The mod ID is a unique identifier for your mod. It should be between 8 and 64 characters long and only contain alphanumerical characters such as A to Z, 0 to 9, hyphens, and underscores. In my instance, I've just called it tutorial mod, or one word. The mod group would usually match your Java packaging name. It is usually in the format of website name reversed .modid. If you don't have a website, you can use your version control repository instead. For example, as I've done here, com.github.shanenew, and then obviously the mod ID. If you don't have version control or don't plan to use it, you could instead use mod.yourname in lowercase .modid. The important golden rule here is to keep the mod group all lowercase. The entire thing must be lowercase. Now, the mod file name should be your mod display name, but without spaces. So for example, I want my mod to be called tutorial space mod, and that is what I would be displaying to people seeing my mod. But for the file name, it mustn't contain spaces. So you can do one of two things. You can remove the spaces entirely, which I've done here, tutorial mod, or you can put hyphens. So I could have put tutorial hyphen mod. It's up to you what you want to do. There are lots of different mixed examples online. For example, Tinker's construct is usually Tinker's hyphen construct. Buildcraft is just buildcraft. Next is the Minecraft version that you're targeting, so 1.15.2. We'll use this variable in combination with the mod version to create your actual mod version later on, because the mod version that should be used should be in the format of Minecraft version hyphen mod major version dot mod minor version dot mod patch version. This just makes it a bit easier, and separating them out is a bit clearer as to what they are. Next is the Forge version. You need to set this to the version of Forge that you downloaded earlier. In this video I downloaded 31.1.0, so that is what I've set this to. Next is the MCP mappings channel and version. The MCP mappings is, what MCP stands for is Mod Coder Pack. This is basically some mappings that have been provided by the community that provides meaning for names and descriptions for fields, methods, and method parameters in the Java code that is produced by the Mod Coder Pack MCP. I highly recommend updating this quite regularly so that you get the latest mappings. It makes it a bit nicer. The IntelliSense is more up to date. You're less likely to get parameters in methods that come up with random names that mean absolutely nothing. But at the very least, I would make sure that you set this to the latest version. So the channel is basically whether or not you're going for stable or snapshot. The stable ones are, stable. The snapshot ones are ones that are done every day. And then the version is the version of the snapshot, or the version of the stable version that you're after. There is a handy website called the MCP bot, and it has a data exports tab that you can go to. I'm going to be using a snapshot, so the channel will be snapshot, and the latest version here, yep, this one's the latest version. So what I would do is I would copy this version here and use that in that variable. If you wanted to use the stable one, you set the channel to stable and you would copy one of these versions. As you can see here, I've put the latest snapshot version in here. And that's it for this file, so you can close that one. So let's tweak the build.gradle file. Open it with Notepad will be fine. Now, I have already updated this file to make this a bit quicker, rather than having you watch me code it all. I will provide a link to the GitHub repo that will contain this file so you can look at it, copy and paste bits if you need to. But essentially the bits that I've changed is the version was originally 1.0. I've changed it to use the Minecraft version variable hyphen and the mod version. So this matches the format that I mentioned earlier that Minecraft mods should use. So this will be 1.15.2 hyphen 0.1.0 for our first version. I updated the group to use the mod group, and I've updated the archives base name to use the mod file name. I then updated the mappings channel and version to use the variables that we created earlier. I then went in and changed the mod name under the runs client, server, and data. I just realized that I have actually missed this bit here. Let's do that now. Cool. And under the dependencies, I've changed it so that the forge dependency is actually getting the version part from the variables. So we're using the Minecraft version plus a hyphen and the mod forge version, which makes it a bit easier for upgrading forge versions later on. We don't have to come back into this file, or we shouldn't have to. I then updated the jar manifest attributes. So I've set the specification title to the mod ID. I've set the vendor to the mod group. I did set this to 1.0 because I prefer that, however 1 is absolutely fine. The title and version of the implementation is absolutely fine, and I've set the vendor for the implementation to mod group as well. The last thing I did was I added this signing fingerprint to the bottom. The reason I'm doing that is because I would like to sign my jars to give it some extra security. It just proves that this jar was compiled and created by me and not an imposter. I've then added the signing task, and then I've added processing of resources. So the processing of resources will happen on every build. This will ensure that the task is redone when the versions change. The next part will replace stuff in the mods toml, but nothing else. And the final part will copy everything except for the mods toml. I then added the sources jar. So the jar that's normally created as part of compiling is basically a file in a compressed format, very much like a zip that contains many Java classes. But it is an executable, or usually it's an executable. Now a sources jar is a non-executable jar that contains the source code for your mod. This is useful if you ever lose your code, and also vital to any other developers who want to write mods that interact with your mod. And that's everything for this file. As I said, to make this a bit easier, because this is a one-time thing, I will provide a link to the GitHub repo where you can view, copy, and do whatever you want with this file, basically, so that you don't have to keep pausing and copying what I'm doing. That's everything we need to do, so save it, close it. So we now need to update the mods.toml file. So go into source, main, resources, meta-inf, and in here you've got your mods toml. I'm going to just open it up in Notepad again. That's sufficient. I've already, once again, changed this file and will be available in the GitHub repo. what I've done, well, I added some spaces so I could actually read what was going on. But the main thing is I've set the issue tracker to point to my repo. I've also updated the mod ID, and the most important one is I've changed the version to just $curly braces version. It's not technically a Gradle thing, but it is required for you to be able to build and run your mod. I've also updated the display name to tutorial mod. I've added a display URL, which I'm just going to my repo. I've also changed the logo file, and you will notice that there's a few others that you may have that I've removed that were optional. I've just got rid of them because I didn't need them. For example, an update URL and things like that. I'm not going to be using those in this tutorial series. I've updated the authors, and then I've left the description as this nice long Lorem Ipsum description, because I don't really care what this needs to be, but you can set that to whatever you want. Everything else in here should be pretty much the same and unchanged, but again, you can get this file from my GitHub repo that I will post a link to. Once that's been done, we can save and close this file. And now I believe I've changed everything that I would normally change before opening up this project, which we'll do next. Finally, we can open this mod project in IntelliJ and start doing a bit in there. So open up IntelliJ, click Open or Import, browse to the location of your mod code folder. So this is the folder that we've been working out all of this time with the Gradle file, and you're going to want to select the build.gradle file. Open that one and say Open as Project. So this will be running some tasks in the background to basically build and configure your project, and it will download dependencies too. This will take a little while to run. Once it's finished processing those background tasks, your environment should be fully set up. But what we're going to do is go to this Gradle tab on the right hand side, hit refresh. Once that's done, expand the code, tasks, and FG runs. In here there's a gen IntelliJ runs. Run this task. This will create the run configurations for actually running your mod in Minecraft. This might take a little while as it's going to download the Minecraft assets, etc. Once it's done, we'll give it a whirl. Okay, once that's done and successful, the last thing we need to do before we try running it to prove that it's working and that your mod gets loaded by Minecraft is go into the source folder, main, Java, and your package will be called something else with example mod. I've renamed this one to my package name as per the configuration files that we were looking at earlier. I've also updated the main Java class file to be called tutorial mod. This needs to be your mod name, probably following the mod file name format. Inside here, I've changed the mod ID to be my unique ID. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just strip out everything inside here, because we're going to cover all of this other stuff as part of the next videos. I've gone too far. Add that back in. So the only thing you should have in this file now is an import for mod, so that you can add this annotation and then this tutorial mod class. So now that you've done that, we should be able to run this and prove that Minecraft launches and loads your mod. Now if everything goes well, then everything should be ready to go. So let's let that load up and we can prove that our mod is being loaded. We won't bother loading into a world because our mod isn't actually changing any behavior, adding any items, etc. That is what we will be covering over the next few videos. In the next video, we will look to add a few custom items. And what I've decided to do to make it a little bit more interesting is I thought I'd add Naquadah. It's a resource, it's actually a mineral that is found in the Stargate TV series. The reason I quite like that is because obviously I like Stargate. But what I thought was really nice about it is it's a material that is used on their armor, the weapons, power generation, etc. It's a very strong, sturdy material that is that can consume a lot of power. It's a superconductor. So I thought that would mean that I could create some items and I could actually use those items in future videos to build our armor or to build some sort of machine later, maybe a furnace or whatever it is going forward. So I thought we'd have a little bit more fun with that. Now I know that Naquadah is technically a mineral, but for this tutorial series I'm going to keep it simple, and it's going to be a ore that when you break that ore, you will get that ore and you can smelt that directly into an ingot. I'm not going to bother doing any other processing, like alloying or anything like that. So let's go and have a look. Minecraft is finally loaded up. Let's click on mods, and there it is, tutorial mod 1.15.2.010, which is the version that we set. And as you can see, it's got all the information that we entered into the TOML file. The one thing I would like to point out, however, is that this image at the top here, we did actually add an entry into the TOML file, but what I had forgotten to tell you is that you need to actually add that file. Let's just close this a second. Under the source main folder, there's a resources folder, and what you'll need to do is put a file in that folder. It needs to be a PNG, I believe, and it needs to match the name that you put into that TOML file. Now I just used the mod ID, so tutorial mod. I did this at a width of 512 pixels. I don't know what the dimensions actually need to be, but as you saw, it loaded up okay. But that's it really. All of this source code for this current state of play right now has been uploaded to GitHub under a branch that I will link in the description of the YouTube video, so you can go there to have a look at the files that we've obviously done as part of this tutorial series. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.